Mic check 1 2, it's the Y2K collector, and my question is, do we prefer the remakes or the originals? And what I mean by that is, do we prefer games as they came originally in their original format on their original console, or do we prefer when we get some type of digital HD remastering of the game on a more modern console? And some of the games that come to my mind are games like the Devil May Cry games, right? So the Devil May Cry series is a series that originally released on the PlayStation 2. We enjoyed it thoroughly on the PlayStation 2. We loved the gameplay. Capcom delivered another classic, but then we saw a re-release of the Devil May Cry series on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. You were able to get all three games in this HD remastered version. And we also see the same thing with the Jak and Daxter series. Jak 1, 2, and 3 were also re-released on the PlayStation 3, and you were able to experience the magic of the Jak and Daxter series on a more modern console with more clarity, HD clarity. And then we also saw the same thing with the Kingdom Hearts series. There's like a Kingdom Hearts pack on, I believe that's on the PlayStation 4, where you're able to play almost, I think, all the Kingdom Hearts games. It's a part of this special pack that they have. And I know I had the game at one point. I'm not sure what I did with it. I might have traded it or sold it. But those were kind of all put together on one type of compilation disc. And, you know, what also comes to my mind is when we do get these remakes and we do see these, these HD remasters, what does it do to the value of the original games that came out on their original platforms? Now, we know that the Kingdom Hearts games, along with the Jak games, as well as the Devil May Cry games, we know that these are some of the cheapest games on the PlayStation 2, right? There's no secret to that. Same thing with the Grand Theft Auto, right? These are some of the cheapest games that you'll see on the platform. But my question is, what makes them cheap? Because it's not that these games are bad games, right? It's not like these games are not fun to play, and it's not like a lot of people didn't enjoy these games. People thoroughly enjoyed these games, but there were a lot of them made, millions of copies sold. It's easily and readily available, and despite their fun factor, despite a lot of people liking the game, for whatever reason, those games just never became expensive, and you'll always still be able to get these games at a really cheap price. Now, some might say, well, Y2K, that's because they got a re-release, or you might say, well, Y2K, it's because, they're so common. But there are plenty of other games that I could think of that got a wide release, that have had remakes, but are still pretty darn expensive. If we even look at something more recent, if you look at like the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or the Marvel vs. Capcom collection, right? I think a lot of people thought that, or still think that this Marvel vs. Capcom collection, this new game that's coming out, I think a lot of people are still looking at it thinking that, it's going to tank the price of the original games, and the original games are going to be worthless, and no one's going to want them, and no one's going to want to collect them. But if I look up the prices of Marvel vs. Capcom on any system, whether it's the PlayStation 2, the Xbox 360, the Dreamcast, no matter what console I'm looking it up on, these games are still expensive. Are they as expensive as they once were? Probably not, but I think most rare and expensive games have come off of their 2020 highs. But they're still pretty expensive regular in relation, they're still pretty expensive when you compare them to other PlayStation 2 games that are going for $5 or $10. And again, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is not like a super rare game by any means. I mean, we did get Marvel vs. Capcom on every 6th generation console, probably except for the GameCube. We got it on Xbox, PlayStation 2, and Dreamcast. I don't know why they didn't put it on GameCube, but could you imagine Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on GameCube if it came out on GameCube? That just would have been crazy. But anyway, I digress. I say all that to say that I don't know if it's, you know, Rarity. I don't know if it's the fact that these games got a re-release. I don't know if I'm not sure what determines certain games, especially certain retro games, being more expensive than others, or certain retro games holding their value over others despite getting large releases, despite also getting remakes. It's just very intriguing for me as a collector to see how those things pan out. And then it also makes me wonder, will there come a day when an original copy of Kingdom Hearts will be expensive? Will there come a point where the price for some of these games that we no longer care about, will they eventually shoot up in value or shoot up in price? I mean, we've seen this happen with other games on other consoles where a game will fly under the radar, or a game might be super common. It might be a game that, you know, a lot of people have or a lot of people have played, but no one really cared about it for a certain period of time. But then a movie comes out, a remake comes out, a part 2 comes out, something comes out that makes the general public want to go back and see what the original was about. You know, they want to go back and trace the origins of the story or of the franchise, and then that will sometimes boost the value of certain games that just may have flown under the radar. But when I look at the PlayStation 2 library, the PlayStation 2 probably has, outside of the Switch, of course, the PlayStation 2, well, I'm not even going to count the Switch because the Switch isn't retro yet. But when I think about retro video game libraries, the PlayStation 2, for me, stands out as one of the largest libraries with a lot of games that are really good, but not really expensive. Some of which are kind of rare because you don't see them every day, yet they're still not priced really high. One of the games that comes to my mind immediately is Alien Hominid. I'm not sure if there was an Xbox release of Alien Hominid. I know Alien Hominid was released on the GameCube, but I don't typically run into copies of Alien Hominid for the PlayStation 2. That's not a very common game, yet it's still not really expensive, or it's not considered a rare gem. It is considered a hidden gem, but it's not something that I see people putting in that, you know, stratosphere of being really expensive or in high demand. And so I just think it's really interesting just to see what determines that, and to see which games reach these heights and which games remain in this relatively cheap, darn near free category when you compare them to some of the other games on the platform. I'm interested to know your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments below. What do you think it is that's driving some of these prices for some of these games? What do you think it is that keeps these games, the cost of some of these games low? And what do you think it is that drives up the price for some of these games? Let me know down in the comments. It's the Y2K Collector. I'll catch you in the next video. Take it easy.